Hello and welcome to a special Granada Reports to mark the 80th anniversary of victory in Europe on the programme this evening. Solemn silences and schoolyard celebrations. We join events across the region to honour the heroes of World War II. We hear from those who fought on the front line about their memories of that day.
Like everybody else in the country then, we were all delighted, you know, that the war was over.
Stepping back to the street parties of the past, we reunite residents in St Helens who marked the 40th anniversary of VE Day here on Granada in 1985.
Also on the programme this evening, 9 people are being held after a neo-Nazi gathering in Oldham. We'll have the latest.
I'll be live at Old Trafford where Manchester United are hoping for victory in Europe tonight as they look to seal their spot in the Europa League final and take a big step towards Champions League football next season.
And hold on tight, temperatures are on the up as we head towards the weekend with plenty of sunshine in store. I'll have the full forecast later on.
Good evening, thanks so much for joining us. Yeah, 80 years ago today came the news the world had been waiting for. Nazi Germany had surrendered and the war in Europe was finally over. There was joy and bittersweet relief as people took to the streets to rejoice and remember the war effort with patriotic pride. Well, today, events to honour those heroes and their sacrifice are as important as ever. And right across the northwest, there have been 2-minute silences. There's been street parties and schoolyard celebrations. And here at the Sunshine Community Centre in Wigan, there's a very special 40s themed party in full swing. Before we look at the festivities here, Mel Barham reports on how our region has remembered.
At the going down of the sun, and in the morning, we will remember them.
80 years of remembering. The crowds in Manchester today stood as they did across the country in silent grief and gratitude to mark the day the war in Europe ended.
The debt we owe to them people can't be measured because the freedoms that we enjoy today is on the back of their service and their sacrifice. We must never forget that. Never ever forget that. Without them, it's whether we'd be here or not.
On the Isle of Man, wreaths were also laid at a ceremony in Douglas to remember those who never got to celebrate the day so many had waited so long for. It was the day that tears turned to cheers.
Yesterday morning at 2:41 a.m, General Jodl, the representative of the German High Command, signed the Act of Unconditional Surrender.
Victory in Europe Day heralded the beginning of the end of World War II, and the celebrations in London were replicated across the northwest. These the joyous scenes in Manchester on that day back in 1945. A day D-Day veteran Jeff Hogg from Morecambe will never forget.
Going in the front line, no more front lines, no more attacks where you can be shot. That's as simple as that. Just thank God it's all finished.
Veterans Kathleen and Roy Lawrence from Macclesfield were among those celebrating today at the National Memorial Arboretum. At the grand old ages of 100 and 101, they can still remember Churchill's famous address.
I can't remember the exact words, but I remember listening to him. And like everybody else in the country then, we were all delighted, you know, that the war was over.
Today was a great excuse for tea and cake. And like in 1945, those street parties were also replicated at Hoddleston St Paul's Primary in Darwin, where they had their own VE Day themed afternoon tea.
We've had a picnic, families have come to celebrate. We've drawn pictures to represent like the soldiers and like the flags.
It means a lot because the soldiers did everything they could and they won the war for us.
I'm just thankful for it that we're not in war right now and we're just in a calm, peaceful country.
And in Lower Pever in Cheshire, a somewhat quieter afternoon tea, this life-size model by local Sally Aspin has become quite the tourist attraction. At Piccadilly Station, the Military Wives Choir provided the soundtrack for those heading out on the rail tracks today. The Blind Veterans Charity shining a light on their veterans' brave service.
It might give these young ones something to remember, because we don't want it again. We don't want it again. There's enough problems going on in the world without another war.
The celebrations will continue into the night. Buildings across the northwest lit up to mark the anniversary, providing a symbol both of thanksgiving and remembrance. Mel Barham, ITV News.
Well, it's been a real day of commemoration and celebration right across the region, hasn't it? And here at the Sunshine Community Centre in Wigan, the party is still in full swing. Everyone's got their flags, there's music, singing, even corned beef hash sandwiches and lots of fizz. And I'm joined with Alan. Alan, you've put all this together. Just give us a little flavour of what's taking place here today.
Well, it's taken a lot of us to put it together, but it started off as a project idea to capture for the last time the stories of people who probably might not be with us very much longer. And certainly we wanted the children of the area to know more about it. So we run some holiday activities programmes for children. A couple of weeks ago we invited a couple of our older friends, older children, in their 80s to come in and speak to the youngsters. And we wanted them to ask them some questions. The whole idea being children of today would capture the children of yesterday, and we'd put that in a tape and we'd send it to, first of all, His Majesty the King and to various museums throughout the country that would hold this for all time.
And how important is it, Alan, you talked about the younger generation, that they really understand the sacrifice that, you know, people who lived through the war went through?
I think it's extremely important, especially today when you've got so many conflicts throughout the world, which these children are seeing every time on television every night. We've got the India-Pakistan situation at the moment. So we wanted children to realise you can live through it. It's not all doom and gloom. These people went through it, quite a lot of them. Wigan, all right, wasn't as badly affected as some of the other areas in the country, but we still had, you know, quite a bit of scare, and there were rationing and everything else, and the war was going on, people were killed, dads, mums, uncles. So we wanted the children to know that, but we wanted them to ask the questions, and that's what they've done. We're putting this project together. Hopefully more people in the Wigan area will come to speak to us so that they can be recorded. And as I say, we're sending it all to His Majesty the King. And we think it's important that kids know all about this.
Alan, thank you so much. And there's so much happening here, including karaoke. But for now, we'll be back a little later, but back to Andy in the studio with the rest of the day's news.
Yeah, thank you, Katie. Well, as many mark the anniversary of VE Day, 9 people have been arrested after an alleged neo-Nazi gathering was held in Oldham to mark Hitler's birthday. Amy Welsh has the latest.
9 individuals aged from their 20s to their 60s are still being questioned by Greater Manchester Police after that so-called Hitler birthday party that took place in a pub in Oldham last month. Members of the far-right group British Movement Northwest allegedly posted pictures online that appear to show them celebrating with a birthday cake with swastika icing and holding up a Nazi flag. Now, these offences allegedly took place at the Duke of Edinburgh pub in Royton, and they prompted Greater Manchester Police to carry out a series of dawn raids yesterday in Rochdale, Oldham, Bolton and Stockport. A number of weapons were seized, including swords, a crossbow, imitation firearms and a grenade. Now, in relation to that grenade, that was found at a house in Bolton, and that prompted Army bomb disposal experts to go in and make sure that item was safe. Those 9 individuals are being questioned on suspicion of Section 18 Public Order Act offences, including displaying written material intended to stir up racial hatred. Greater Manchester Police say they are in contact with Counter-Terrorism Northwest due to the nature of that material, but that it is very much a Greater Manchester Police investigation in its early stages. They don't believe the public to be at risk, but say that they do have officers carrying out extra patrols in order to offer some level of reassurance. Amy Welch, ITV News, Manchester.
Elsewhere tonight, Preston North End player Jordan Storey has been cleared of assaulting a man in a nightclub. The Lily-Whites defender was accused of punching a man in the face as he stood at the bar in Pop World last January. But Storey told Preston Crown Court that he pushed him away in self-defence. The jury returned unanimous verdicts on the charges of actual bodily harm and affray. Next tonight, to the campaign to make gyms and fitness centres more accessible. Despite there being more than 120,000 deaf and hard of hearing people in Manchester alone, very few of them are gym members, and that's because of a lack of support. Well, one group is hoping to change all of that, as Jamal Williams-Thomas reports.
The latest cohort of deaf personal trainers making gyms more accessible to the deaf community. Around 125,000 deaf and hard of hearing people across Manchester are being excluded from gyms due to the lack of engagement. And Worldwide Deaf Gym, along with Better and the Manchester Deaf Centre, are spearheading the change.
I think the barrier is down for the hearing people who never met that person before. The confidence in get the issue for them and creating communication barrier, and they're not understanding what I'm trying to say or need or want to join the gym membership. They're not confident or deaf awareness in there. That's why it creates a barrier. So that's why not many deaf people go to the gym. So that's why we're here to help.
Former footballer Paul Gardner believes that he was a subject of discrimination.
I had a personal coach, and he would help me as a goalkeeper, and he believed that I had the ability to play as part of the semi-professional teams. And so when I went through the offices to do the auditions, they didn't even let me through the door. So the coaches actually said to my coach, "Stay, I'm sorry, but..." And that was it. It was just a sigh.
This session at the Manchester Aquatic Centre is focusing on making deaf people more comfortable when it comes to getting in the gym and being active. And it's not just the trainers themselves. There are handy QR codes that link to short videos with machine demonstrations.
Over the camera, gather them, and they will come up with a video YouTube to show you how to use gym equipment safely.
Just feel like I understand a lot more better because there's deaf awareness here. They know what it's like and they know what I need. Liam was lovely. He taught me how to do it. It felt really good that he was deaf himself, and I feel really confident using the equipment now.
What we want at Worldwide Deaf Gym is inclusive, sustained being the key word, access to fitness, no matter what that fitness is, reduced isolation, integration with the hearing community, and reduced health issues.
Jamal Williams-Thomas, ITV News, Manchester.
OK, time for football now, and Manchester United are looking for their own victory in Europe tonight. They take a 3-0 lead going into the second leg of their Europa League semi-final with Spanish side Athletic Bilbao. Our sports correspondent David Chisnall is at Old Trafford for us, head of the game. Good evening, David. United have a big lead, but they're taking nothing for granted, are they?
No, they're not, Andy. That's probably wise considering the season that they're having this season. United are currently 15th in the Premier League, on course for their worst ever finish in the top flight since being promoted back to it in 1975. However, they are on the verge of another European final, just 2 games away from booking their place in next season's Champions League, which of course is the prize on offer for whoever wins this season's Europa League. Well, ahead of tonight's game, United's boss Ruben Amorim reiterated his belief that if you look at the stats, well, this is the worst United side in recent history, despite leading 3-0 going into the second leg of this semi-final against Athletic Bilbao tonight. He is not expecting this to be straightforward.
We will have to suffer a little bit to go to the final, and we are ready to suffer, and we need to be better in the small details in this game. In the end of this season, we can be the worst team in Premier League in history with a European title, so we will not change nothing. We know that this season was really disappointed for everybody. Nothing is going to change. So in that moment, sometimes I have to think a little bit more, but I felt that, and I still feel that.
Well, after a difficult start to life under Ruben Amorim, one man who's now really cementing his place in the starting lineup at United is Alejandro Garnacho. And despite the 20-year-old being linked with a move away from the club earlier in the season, he says he's happy where he is.
Yeah, obviously, as a footballer, you always gonna read and listen some rumors about the future. But I have contract here until 2028, so I'm happy here. It's not easy when in middle of the season you change, for example, the manager and all the stuff. But yeah, in my mind, it's always try to work hard every day and try to show the manager in this case that I need to play, and this is the only thing I have to do.
Well, Garnacho and his United teammates are firmly in the driving seat ahead of tonight's semi-final. If they can see off Bilbao tonight, well, then they will book their place in Bilbao in 2 weeks' time, as that is where the Europa League final is being held.
Thank you, David. Staying with football, and David Beckham says he's delighted to be part of a new consortium in charge at Salford City. Beckham has been a part owner at the League Two club since 2019. He, along with his former Manchester United teammate Gary Neville, has joined businessman Declan Kelly and Lord Mervyn Davies to lead the group that's taken over. Fellow Class of 92 members Ryan Giggs, Paul Scholes, Phil Neville and Nicky Butt have all stood down as shareholders. And that's it from me. Now, it's back to Katie in Wigan, where there's a bit of a party atmosphere.
Yeah, welcome back to Wigan, where, as you can hear, the party is in full swing. We've just had the ukulele band playing out for us. It's been brilliant. But 40 years ago, the Granada cameras were sent to a street party in St Helens, where people came out in full force to mark VE Day and show support for those involved in the war effort. Lauren Ostrich went back to Haydock Street for a look back with those residents.
It's a celebration etched on the memories of many for the last 4 decades. Not only because of the scale of this street party, but because Granada TV were there to capture every moment. Friends and neighbours all came together to recreate scenes from 40 years previous, when the same row of houses came out to mark victory in Europe, the end of the war.
All the neighbours brought the tables out and we had one long trestle table. And we supplied the pot, didn't we? I know I was treasurer and collected the money from the neighbours.
Margaret and Sandra organised the lot. They've been friends since they were 3 years old and still live right next door to each other.
40 years on, when the camera crew came, just couldn't believe it, because they practically lived in my house. When they came to set up, it was like a railway track that they set up on the pavement, and the camera was going up and down, and then they were into my house. All I kept thinking was, I've had a new hall stairs and carpet laid. What's it going to be like after they've all gone? Yeah.
Sandra's mum featured in Granada TV's 40 Years On documentary. During the war, she helped build tanks.
I know, I remember the first day I went, I had to wear dungarees, blue dungarees, and I wore a beret, which I had perched that way over my head. I was walking down to the restroom, we had a restroom. I was walking down to the restroom, and a man, one of the workmen that was working on the machine, looked at me, he said, "Oh, whose nice little lad are you?"
A few weeks afterwards, she got a phone call from Granada, wanting her full postal address. And she said, "Well, why do you want that?" I said, "Oh, for your appearance money." She got a cheque for £15 it was at the time. She bought herself a pearl necklace with it.
Well, just fantastic memories there, aren't they? And you can watch Lauren's full report now on ITVX. And maybe some of you watching at home were old enough to remember the very first VE Day and how incredible those street parties were. Well, as celebrations continue here, not one to miss out is our Vicky Grimes, and she's somewhere here. Give us a wave, Vicky, where are you?
I'm over
there she is.
Having a good time. Brilliant time. Absolutely fantastic. Tell you what, this is where it's all happening in Wigan today. Look at these hats. Girls, are you enjoying yourselves? How many pieces of cake have you had?
Only one.
Only one? Oh, that's rubbish. We need to educate you. You need to eat more pieces of cake. Now, speaking of education, we've got our land boys over here and our little landladies here. Emily, you've been learning about VE Day in school, haven't you? What did you learn?
War in Europe.
End of the war.
Yeah.
And what happened?
They had a big party.
They had a big party like this are having here today. Look at this. Everyone's having an absolute whale of a time. Now, we've got a couple of people who remember VE Day all too well. We've got Margaret and Alan. Alan, just tell us what you remember, because you were 7 years old, was it?
I was 7 years old, yes. And when VE Day was come out, everybody was in the street, and there was a lady, there was only one lady, had a radiogram. And they dragged it out into the street, and everybody were dancing, singing. Peace is over, at last.
Peace. What can you remember how you felt when you heard that?
Well, 7-year-old, it was like an adventure come to the end, you know. But we felt so proud as we'd survived it. Even though we weren't in the big cities, they were still after us as well.
So, I mean, it must be quite emotional to be here today, 80 years on, I think that's that night.
Correct, it does, yeah.
Yeah.
But we're here to tell the tale anyway. We're still here and we survived. We were one of the lucky ones that survived.
You're right, it's a day to remember, Alan, as well. It really is. Thank you so much for talking to us. And here's Margaret. Margaret, now, we were just talking about this before. You were a little bit older than Alan, weren't you, when
Yes, I
when
am.
you had your VE Day? Tell us what you remember.
I remember the bonfire in the street and all the children running around with fireworks and sparklers and a party, but most of all walking down streets, and they were all lit up, all the people.
There was no
had
blackout.
That. There was no blackout, and that was the best thing.
Margaret, thank you so much for sharing your memories. We'll go back to Katie now. She's here somewhere in this party zone. Where are you, Katie?
Yeah, just over here, thanks Vicky, save us some cake. I mean, those memories, what it must have been like 80 years ago. Well, it's almost time to say goodbye, but before we go, we just wanted to mention someone else who has an extra special reason to celebrate today. Victor Johnson from Abram turns 80 today, born on VE Day and even named Victor to mark the occasion. His family have decked out his home in red, white and blue to celebrate. So a very happy birthday to you, Victor. And that's all from the team here as the party continues. Tonight we're going to leave you with a selection of the celebrations right across the Northwest, back in 1945 and today. Good night.
How many of our veterans said, "Don't ever let this happen again"? We were there, we went, and we did what we were asked. Let them learn from what we found out.
Like everybody else in the country then, we were all delighted, you know, that the war was over.
Yes, it's really over and we can have our party.
Why do I need a shower? I've been out in the rain.
The faster you go, the sooner you'll be out. You'll save water too.
United Utilities sponsors ITV Granada weather.
Hello, a very good evening to you. High pressure in charge still of our weather through the rest of this week. It'll be dry for the northwest of England with warm, sunny spells to come. Temperatures will be picking up into the weekend and into next week. The air will become more unstable and it's likely there'll be a few thundery downpours Sunday and into Monday. But we can see the dominance of that high pressure blocking everything across the UK, pulling up warm air from the south. By the end of the week and into next week, temperatures will be boosted even more. But back to this evening's details. A few pockets of mist here and there, a dry night to come, and still pretty chilly in rural spots before tomorrow morning, perhaps down to 3 or 4 Celsius. Winds falling very light, and in our towns and cities staying at 7 or 8 degrees before tomorrow morning. On to the details for tomorrow. The sun will be up at 5:20, setting at 5 to 9 tomorrow evening. Tomorrow then, a beautiful start to the day in fact. Any early mist will lift really quickly. Wall-to-wall sunshine for many of us through the morning. Some fairly high UV levels. The sunshine will be strong. It stays dry, fine and pretty warm tomorrow afternoon, with temperatures peaking at 20 Celsius, particularly in urban areas tomorrow. Looking ahead to the weekend, more of the same, certainly to start with on Saturday, and temperatures will be boosted as we head through into Sunday and beyond, potentially reaching 26 degrees by Monday. The air remains stable through Saturday and much of Sunday, but a few thundery downpours could develop later in the day and certainly to start the working week. Enjoy your evening.
United Utilities sponsors ITV Granada weather.